Hi there, what's going? I just out of respect for the other agents here, especially, not every broker may be as amicable to the way that I believe that it's the way to conduct it. Some people have a little harder opinion, but thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you coming today. As I mentioned earlier, you're my biggest crowd in a training seminar yet in this part of my life of doing real estate, and it's good. I mean, it is. I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to share with you everything I can in roughly an hour, okay, that I know about celebrity homes and how I use history and the stuff that have worked in my life and my business. And I hope it helps you in yours, you know. And if anybody needs a little bit more one-on-one afterwards, you're welcome to call me up and ask me, and I'll tell you more of what I know. Just I'm going to show you a little bit clicking. This is a website that is one of the central pieces, okay, that I use in doing. I believe when I do marketing, I look at marketing as layering in of different channels of income and revenue and leads and stuff like that there. And I believe in the more channels that I create, the better my business becomes overall. I mean, I don't find any one thing absolutely does it. But I will say that this has been a very significant one that I've done in my life, and it's really a kind of a cross promotion of what I did. When I wrote this book, okay, The Best Guide Ever to Palm Springs Celebrity Homes, it really changed my life. Just the fact, it took me about a year from when I sat down. I do a lot of stuff in Excel and just typed in the first address that I knew and the celebrity's name and what was going on in their lives for the first time, and I did the next one. In my life, just to back up just a little bit from this year, I grew up here in Palm Springs. I'm one of the few people that actually graduated from Palm Springs High and still lives here in town. If you've ever seen me out at the street fair on a Thursday night, I have a booth out at Village Fest where it's most of the time it's me and one of my kids, because I got a bunch of kids, and to have one-on-one time with them is really a fun thing. The fact that I've grown up here, I've had a couple of different careers in my life. I was a cook at the Chart House in the late 70s and through the 80s. I was owned a bookstore in the 90s. There was a brief stint where I lived on the peninsula in Newport Beach. After college years, I went to COD, didn't graduate, but went there and then moved on to the beach and lived there for about 6 years and sold cars on Harbor Boulevard in Costa Mesa. And that's where I really cut my teeth in sales and began learning just how to handle a sale, a meet and greet, a discovery, and then landing people on the right product. Moved back home in the 90s, and during that time, my parents, who had a decent mom and pop bookstore in Rancho Mirage, it was in the Rancho Las Palmas Center in those days, that center had a brief stint as being the #1 shopping center here in the desert when there were still huge swaths of vacant land out here that I recall as a kid. But then Brentano's and Crown Books, who were the dominant book dealers in the 1980s, drove my parents out of business, on the verge of bankruptcy. Dad makes one of those deals where you pay a nickel on the dollar, or I pay you nothing, and was able to get through that for a long period of his life. But on his back porch, literally between the slider and the pool, were piles of banana boxes and apple boxes filled with all the books from his bookstore of the 1980s. I moved home in about 1991, figuring out what I'm going to do. I've had my fun at the beach and selling cars, but now I'm telling myself I'm going to get serious about life. And my dad and I went in partners on a bookstore at that time. And we went with the name of Celebrity Books, because the landlord would give us a better deal on the rental location. And in those years, I was hunting up celebrities to get them to sign books so I could create an autographed bookcase in my shelf at the store, which eventually went from this side to about where Miss Basile, Joan Parker, where Joan is sitting. Okay, it was about that much shelf filled with autographed books. Okay, and I would get first-class authors to come in and sign and stuff like that. And a lot of them had homes here in the desert. Sidney Sheldon would come into my store fairly often. Ray Bradbury was extremely generous with the time that he spent with me in those days. Harold Robbins, I had a personal relationship with him, and my dad also in those days, because he was still propping up the home front for him and my mom. So my dad starts delivering the New York Times. Literally, he's the guy in the middle of the night throwing the newspaper out the window of his car So it'll be, and that's one of the things, my dad's living without almost no sleep, being grossly overweight, but he would not file bankruptcy. And that is, so he's working like 3 jobs, including working for me at the bookstore. In those days, our roles are kind of reversed. I became the boss and he the employee on that there. But fast forward through all of that, caught the whole internet wave, learned a lot about selling books and marketing myself online and what I now call an internet presence, which is one of the, these are probably some of the key things that I consider in my overall marketing strategy of what I do. It's not just building a website, it's building an internet presence, what I do. And I'll touch more on that as we go forward, but in about 2002, after I had had a pretty good run with the bookstore for a decade, on that there, I sold it to a couple of ladies and sold the bookstore, sold my booth at Village Fest, sold my websites that I was doing business on, the ones I built and stuff like that. And then I went to work for Marriott Corporation selling timeshare. So I took sales, a more direct home sales line at that point. But at the time that I went to work for Marriott, I really wanted to write. I was a frustrated bookseller who had taken that as far as I could, but I always wanted to be the author on the other side of the table. So I wrote a couple novels. They didn't sell very well. I still have them. They sell occasionally. But going up to about 2009, 2010, during my time at Marriott, self-publishing came a long way during those years. And more I was hearing about authors, even name authors, who were switching to their own publishing means because their backlist books, they wanted to make more money off them. And I started just publishing books. I don't even have them here. These are some of my best-selling titles. But I started publishing books that were kind of like college-level thesis. A book on history of copyright, a book on reverse discrimination, stuff like that. Nothing glamorous at all, but it taught me how to write. And then one day, after I'd done about 7 of those, okay, and I'm still only selling 20 books a year, I write a book called P.S. I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball in Palm Springs. Because when I had my bookstore back in the day, somebody would come into your store, you got to use books. I said, hey, you sell books, do you buy books? And they bring you a box full of books. I said, well, sure, go and buy. Well, I had a handful of times where people would bring in pictures and say, well, do you buy pictures? And I bought like a personal family photo, just like a day in the buffet line at the Racket Club. And you've got Bob Hope getting his mashed potatoes and Cary Grant getting us over here his piece of chicken and stuff like that. And that's just all it is, just one star after another. That day, or a day poolside at the El Mirador. And it was like, obviously the family has got the kids and their stuff there, and they're staying at the El Mirador Hotel in the 40s or 50s, but then you've got Lucille Ball in the background. You've got John Wayne over here on this chaise lounge. You've got, somebody else over there. Cary Grant on horseback, which was a great picture. That there. So in those days, I took those 12 or 15 pictures that I had, and most of them, there was the greatest abundance of Lucille Ball, and I wrote the first version of this book. And it went from selling 20 books a year to 200 or 300 a month. It was just like a light switch went on in my book sales. And I said, well, that's what people want to buy. Okay, I'll write more of that if that's what they want. Let's follow where the money is. And that's it. So from there, I wrote this book, and I just put a new cover on it to dress it up a little bit. It took me about a year, but being in the book business and with my dad's Rolodex of delivering newspapers, my own Rolodex from the bookstore, started writing that out. Roughly a year later, I've got this one here. It's I find it hard to talk too much about myself, and I don't want to appear snooty or anything, but I get lots of compliments on this book. It's very easy to read. There are maps in it that show you exactly where the celebrities are. Okay, on it, I have enough here so you can see what was going on in their life at the time, a quick description of the home, and then we're on to the next one. And here's Elizabeth Taylor, and here's Marilyn Monroe, and it's that fast of a read, where it's worked. And these days I sell 2,000 to 3,000 of these a year, and it's been consistently at that now for about 4 or 5 years. Maybe another 1,000 or 2 of the other books that I do. If you look me up on Amazon, I loaded a bunch of these in. But this is a list of my books on Amazon. I did a Mid-Century Modern Masterpiece, a coffee table book about a year ago. Biography of Roberta Lynn. She was a Champagne lady for Orange Book. The True Crime has some great stories in it. A couple stories won't carry it in town because the people in it that are mentioned, or convicted or not convicted, shop in that store, especially a city council person that we have. The Witch of Tockwitz, you know, the origin of the tribal casino is probably the scariest story I ever wrote on that there, because of the family who helped lift the Morongo Band of Indians to have, not this casino, one of the Indios, I forget the one, Fantasy Springs, down in Indio, a very criminal element family, and one of them's on my Facebook page. So I had to think, wow, is he gonna notice that I just wrote a book about his family? But anyways, I take all this knowledge now, and I just described about a 20-year time span that allowed me to go through and do what I've done. And about 4 years ago, say, I was selling for my wife. At that point, she and I were working together as a team, and I wanted to create more of an identity for myself. And we've made most of our bread and butter in real estate of selling condos in the $300 or less range. You know, if we sell a home in the $500,000 to $700,000 range, we feel like we hit a home run. And I know there's some brokerages out here that that's all they do, you know, or above. And that they're, that was never us. I mean, we got ourselves though very strong in that more just regular blue collar America, maybe barely branching into the white collar clientele, where we were doing 50 or 60 deals a year. And it was the consistency of doing it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with making a $6,000 or $9,000 commission. Okay, I think most people would be very happy with that, especially if you can get it so you're doing one every month or two, and then occasionally doing 2 or 3 a month, you know, so that they really add up. And that's kind of been our philosophy towards business and how I've applied all of this here. So going back to the celebrity home site, okay, this one here, I'm cross-promoting at this point, and this is where I'm going to start really sharing the information that all of you could take advantage of. One of the simple things that I do is during the better months of the year, because I don't get enough exercise, I eat too much fast food, okay, I organize a walk through a neighborhood and just give it away for free, okay? Anybody want, and if you're parking next door in Palm Springs, you'll occasionally see me put a post. Anybody who wants to walk the Las Palmas neighborhood, rendezvous at Temple Isaiah at 9 o'clock this Saturday. It's going to take about an hour and a half. You can bring a friend, you can bring a leashed pet. You don't have to leash your friends, but just come and have a good time. There won't be bathrooms or water, so be prepared. But I'm going to do this Saturday at 9 o'clock. Anybody who wants to can come. Usually I get crowds of 30 to 50 people, okay, at these here. And it's very nice and up there. Recently, my numbers have jumped. That's a little small to see on this year. I couldn't get any bigger than that through an email. 130 people showed up my one last Saturday. We did Deepwell neighborhood, and my house is on Tockwitz River, it's right on Mesquite, but it's an easy place to launch from it into Deepwell. There, I have this Remax balloon now, being part of Remax. I put it in my front yard as kind of a beacon. It's about 10 feet tall and it inflates and that there. So I mean, I'm trying to sell real estate, you know, while I'm doing all this here, but I often make my real estate pitches real estate light, L-I-T-E, okay? I don't like to go in, I don't want to be the brother, uncle, cousin, like, hey, I got this great property, you gotta go say, what, you're not in the market, how about you? You know, I got this really, that's not the guy I want to be, okay? And even as I'm approaching agents, I really try to not be that, although some people think I'm harder than I do. I really try to not be. With this here, I'm really gentle. And at one point, and we got to the first house, which is in front of Carmen Miranda's house, and the crowd was so big, I'm like, guys, I gotta ask this. Anybody who doesn't want to be in this, step off to the side. I'm gonna pull out my cell phone here, and I gotta take your picture. I did that there. It's the biggest crowd. I had to literally stand on a ladder in my front yard in order to address them, to tell them that at the time I finish this sentence, we're gonna walk that way and start. And it was humbling, seeing that many people show up. It's just so nice. So, and I can't tell you that a ton of my business has come to. I've gotten some. I've had people on the walks. Well, we like the place we're staying this season, but we'd really like to find something like da-da-da-da-da. Really? Okay, well, here's my card. Let me jot yours down real quick. Okay, I'll follow up with you after the weekend because I got something else I'm doing tomorrow. And that's what it is. It's also, now it has started, and if we could, I'm gonna go back here. it's allowed me to get a few listings, okay, by doing this, I find that it both creates an identity for me with my existing client, which is a lot of just middle America or middle Canada, because I do a lot with Canadians, and they appreciate the knowledge. They do. Everybody has heard that there's a lot of celebrity history here in Palm Springs, but they don't know where, they don't know when, they don't know how. It's just this kind of thing that's grown into more of a myth than where's the reality. And my books and my websites and me personally, when I'm talking to people, allows that to happen. I do these walks about once a month, as I mentioned, through the better parts of the year, but I mean, I can't even put a number on it anymore. It's beyond 20. Okay, the times that I've had a client who said, Eric, I got my mother-in-law coming in next month and she doesn't walk very good. Would you do a personal, we'll buy you lunch? It's always yes. I mean, I might have to schedule it in and move them a day when we do it, but the answer for me on that is always yes. Okay, and what I'm doing, and I'll show it to you here on a page, is that I've done this enough now that I can do it practically off the top of my head. But I'll tell you, many times, I will literally take one of my books, okay, draw myself a map. This is half of the Las Palmas neighborhood. Okay, and let's see, that one back in there. That's the Alexander house that's on the cover. That's the Honeymoon Hideaway on that there. With one of these books. Yeah, I'm sorry, who said that? Somebody said they wanted to see one?
No, the Elvis Presley one.
Yeah, I'll literally take a highlighter and draw the map that I want to do. So I've taken the time to go through and eliminate the B and the C and the D level celebrities that nobody's ever heard of. He was a great camera guy. He was a good producer, but okay, they want to see Elvis, they want to see Marilyn, they want to see the A-listers. That's what everybody wants to do. And I'll draw myself a map and we'll drive it. Okay, and I'll give them that hour and a half. And the connection you will have with a client, if you take the time to do that, is immense. Nobody does that. You get charged 50 or 75 bucks to do a celebrity tour on one of the buses that goes through the neighborhoods. You're the realtor. I'm the realtor. We're supposed to know about homes and that there. It's a knowledge that many people have not taken the time to learn. And if you do that there and then pass it on to your clients and just as a freebie, I'll tell you, they think it's great. And you'll pick up, once you start, you'll learn the stuff that's in my book. Then you'll come across a story on the internet one day, or Paul Free's Life will publish an article that you like to, and it just keeps adding to your quantity of knowledge. But it gives you an excellent starting place, okay, with this book here. And I'm not really here trying to sell the book, but I'll tell you, this is totally free. Okay, you can bring this down on your computer. I had a lady about 2 weeks ago emailed me a thank you. I really appreciate, the writing that you've done. I had my phone out and I took my brother and sister and walked through the Warm Sands neighborhood because I didn't even realize it. I didn't think my website was that good, to tell you the truth. It's going through a slight remodel right now. But this works well on a phone. You can pull it the way it adjusts. That map can be brought up with a couple of steps going through, and you can literally just do it on your phone. Okay, and drive through or walk through or something like that. And I break it down the city into about 17 different neighborhoods. So now.
And Eric, if you're farming anywhere in Palm Springs, it's great to just know your neighborhood because you're an expert in it.
Right, yeah, I mean, if you're doing a Depot, or if you're doing Movie Colony East, if you're doing Racket Club, if you're doing Canyon Country Club, or Canyon Corridor, or Mesa, or whatever else, you should know these. I've been invited to 2 or 3 of the homeowner association groups, or they're not homeowner association, but the neighborhood association groups in Palm Springs, where I stand up and I talk to them about, the neighbors that own homes, and those are, I print out nice maps and stuff and get a little packet. But it's just starting, okay? And whatever skill level you're at, you start. And it starts with absorbing the knowledge. And the stuff in this book or on this website, which are a mirror of each other, is a great location to do it. And that's part of what you're going to put. Think about all your profiles that you have online. Every one of you's got a Zillow, a Truly, a Realtor.com. You're in an MLS. I don't even know what else. You might have 1 or 2 other. You might have your own personal website or personal websites. Whatever you've done. You've got a Facebook profile. You've got a LinkedIn profile. You've got, whatever else, social media that you're doing. But as you put this knowledge in there, you'll figure out how much you wanna offer yourself, because time is important. And I'll tell you, I wake up every day anymore at about 4 in the morning. And by 5, I'm at a full-on sprint. And when I pick my kids up from school at 5 that evening, all I'm doing is counting the opportunities I missed in a day. Every day's like that, okay, for my, you'll figure out how to apply this or how much is appropriate for you to fill your schedule with in that area. And I hope your days are like that. And if they're not, I'll tell you more if you want some one-on-one. But just to give you an insight here, this one here is one of my emails. Okay, let's get out of this. I'm going to touch on it just briefly here. Database marketing, and this will probably be a subject for next month. Okay, that I'll do another seminar on. I do a lot with database marketing. I don't use any CRM, customer retention management tool that's provided by a Mike Ferry or a not the one that I like. Brian Buffini, yeah. And I really relate with Brian Buffini.
Yeah.
I use Excel. Okay, Excel is practically free. Pull this up. That is the address, celebrity name of who lived where, the APN number, the address where their tax bill goes, the current names of the owners. This is a database that I keep maintained. And I have not made enough use of this in the recent past. So what you're going to see from me in the next year, more and more of these homes that I want as my listing. Okay, so in my brokerage, some people say, well, I'll never work for a broker they have to compete with. I got 600 homes I want for my farm. I probably got another 200 than what's in this book these days. And that's all I want to work. I wish I had somebody to hand over my $100 and $200 and $300 condos. Because that's what I enjoy. And we talked about fun at one point in here. I really like a life where I get to put everything I am creatively into all of my endeavors. And if I can do that, the money will happen. And it's happened to me a couple times in my life really well, and I feel like this is heading towards it. The spillover and the slop that is left over, that is money, I'm not that concerned with. I hope you each reach a point like that in your business, however you want to do it. And I'll tell you, it is a fantastic feeling. And besides being proud of my kids and loving my wife, it is in the top 3 things that I like creating. This has allowed me to do it, and how I approach business and the knowledge I like to share is what I've described to you, and maybe sometimes I get too much into the gloss on this and not the meat of the potatoes. Creating something unique, okay, in our jobs as realtors. I like selling an intangible product. When I was selling books, and I'll tell you, I was selling 500 to 1,000 books a month or more. I got my business doing more than $250,000 in internet sales, okay, and what I was doing in that there. And now I'm applying the same way I sold $5 and $10 and $20 products, which is the cost of a used book, without counting the rare ones, because there's that occasional one where you're selling a $1,000, book or so. It's the quantity of just those regular sales, and how do I multiply them? Now I'm approaching that with real estate. Stuff like this here, and I can show you a similar database of how I'm approaching my own clientele base. I have a database in Excel with roughly 1,300 past and present clients, people that I've met at my celebrity home walks. Buffini talks about doing the mayor campaign, if you've taken any of his classes, where you have this little 2-sentence spiel about, do you know anybody in real estate, and if you did know someone, who would you turn to? Do you mind if I be that guy? It's my own kind of language, but doing that same thing, okay, and I'm just constantly feeding my database through the free efforts of knowledge that I impart upon the people that I can meet, and then watching them enjoy it. And if they enjoy life, they want more of me. And that's it in a nutshell, more and more of what I can do. So I'm trying to think, I just like spilled most of my beans right there, but any questions on any of that? Maybe I should open it up, because I could easily keep talking, but I like interactive too. Do you kind of
Sales technique number 3. So basically what I'm getting from you, and which I concur, is back to basics. Talking to people, being out there. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of just done with the disconnect of what's going on in the world and society with internet and everything's online and nobody talks to anybody anymore. And
It's
I
called
really think of connecting with people, which is all I do since I'm a sales rep, and I love talking to people, and I don't know, I get more out of speaking with people and business than any freaking database that I send out. Now, sure, you're gonna get business from that, of course, I'm not saying it's not happening and all that, but I'm worried.
But it has to have a
one-on-one.
person on the other end. And let me ask you this, have any of you ever bought anything from a phone call that called you? Okay, from a telemarketer, Zillow calls you up. Hey, I noticed that you're doing so much in this area. We've got the zip code available for that. You know, you should be advertising for this. And I'll tell you, we all want to say no. I have. Not a lot, but I can think of once or twice that I have. I've turned down hundreds, okay, when I've done it. But it's the people who really took the time to call, and maybe even called 3 or 4 times. And at some point in it, they caught me at the right moment. And yeah, I was looking for a little different, and I called back. So what you're describing though there, Joan, is the return to the human. That's the best phrase I've heard that describes it. And actually, I learned that at HomeSmart.
Yeah, I
Okay,
really
when I was
think
there.
return to the human.
The return to the human, because what I see in the real estate business right now, and the newest one is Purple Bricks. Okay,
Yeah, we were just talking
advertising
about that.
very cheap real estate fees, and we all want our 3% aside, or 6% for the total, if we can double it. And yeah, we might split it to 5 if we get the chance to double it, because we want to be fair. But we carry insurance, we've got a mortgage on our house, we've got to make our car payments, we got kids, wives, spouses, you know, all those things. And it takes money, you know, for us to run our lives. And then we want a little bit for us. So one day, maybe we don't have to work so hard, okay? Companies like Purple Bricks, like what Zillow's doing right now, where they're putting out that they buy houses out there, they're trying to take a slice out of it. Even some of the local rental companies, okay, that are doing a fantastic job at renting it, have taken a large slice of the available rentals out of the MLS and put them on their own websites, and they're doing their own marketing. For those of us still working a more traditional type with a CDAR or a PSR and marketing ourselves as agents, we see our database of either available properties or available clients shrinking, and that there. So the times I've heard of people that have been able to overcome it, and the times in my life that I've been able to overcome it, and I have failures too, but I like to build on my strengths, is when I'm able to offer something that makes me unique. Something that you can't find on just a website, because they can look up the data if they want. But isn't it a lot nicer when you find somebody who turns into a friend that tells you the information, and you have that great afternoon, and you share a drink or a sandwich or something like that? I mean, those are the connections that you build 1 or 2 at a time. And over the course of a year or 3 years or 5 years, you find that you have hundreds of them. And then that becomes your circle of influence. Right? I mean, and that's it. So,
Sure.
so what is that golden little thing that we all got that is? And we all know how to run a CMA. You know, we all know how to drive a neighborhood or look at a map, you know, on here and find an address or build a route, you know, to show people based on their criteria. But then what do you talk about when you're on that? And what do you talk about when they come down next year and they want to meet you at Starbucks for coffee? Okay? And you start having so many of those, if you're successful even in just those basics, and this is what prompted Tracy and me to come up with the idea of doing the Celebrity Homes Walk. We reached a point of just doing basic real estate well enough that over the course of about 5 years, we were invited for so many coffees, lunches, and dinners that we were beginning to count the hours that we weren't spending with each other one-on-one, and that we weren't spending with our kids. You know, and nobody wants to turn down business, because you feel the day that you shut anybody down from business, you're not just losing that customer, but the other 3 that might come from them one day. So I threw it out. I kind of did it as a half joke, thinking, let's give away something for nothing, and maybe that'll become something. I said, what if I just did a neighborhood celebrity homes walk, and then a lot of our clients could show up to that. They're going to learn something. They're going to have a morning of fun outside activity. And while I'm walking from homes, I can catch up and say, hey, yeah, you play golf this year? You and your wife, any of your kids come down and visit you? You know, are you going to stay through all the holidays, and a little bit of business too? Are you renting it any time this year? Is there any gaps in what you're trying to do with your condo? Because I know your HOA dues, you know, amount to something. And so I get a little bit of the business, but I can do that while I'm walking to Carmen Miranda's house, while I'm walking to Jerry Lewis's house, while I'm walking to Liberace's house, okay? And like I say, 30 to 50 people most times. This one blew my doors, 130 people showed up. You know, and so if we're working at all on the philosophy like a telemarketer, that we're dealing in single digits or point single digits return when we're doing mass quantity marketing, hopefully I get 1.3 sales.
Mhm.
Not bad for 2 hours of a Saturday morning. Okay?
Did you use a microphone?
I do not. I just, I've never felt any more like any, on this one here, I don't know if I said it or not, I forget some. There were so many people, I had to go to my garage and get, I have this kind of industrial little step ladder that gets me up about the height of this table I stand, and then it's got like railing. I usually use it to get that high stuff in the garage, okay, that I always feel like if it's too rickety, I'm gonna kick out from underneath me.
Mhm.
This time I pulled it out in the front yard and literally had to stand on that so I could be above everybody's head and tell them how we were gonna start the morning.
But when did
Yeah.
they have the opportunity to buy the book? I was on your tour and I enjoyed it.
I pitch in there in the beginning, again, I do light, on any of my sales stuff that I do, but I said in the beginning, I might have held it up, I can't remember, but I did write this book, and at the end, I got a couple in the garage, if anybody wants to do it. I sold that day 5 or 6 books on my washing machine, literally with just the box that it's in, and then right next to it, here you go, and I just do them for 20 bucks cash on there. I also sell them out at the street fair on Thursday night, and I've got half a dozen of the mom and pops here. True Value is one of my better ones. But it's been in Costco, it's been in Barnes and Noble. I've had a few higher level successes in the selling of it too. Yes,
So with your database, besides obviously social media, do you do other medias? Do you send some, a direct mail out occasionally to your farming? Do you,
I send a newsletter. I really like free and cheap. I'll tell you, and I know I spend money sometimes hosting my websites. I paid a webmaster $500 yesterday to do some of the remodeling on the website that's happening right now to make it, if you, but I really like free and cheap. Go back to, you can't even see my mouse right now. Here, and then here. Right now, on this here, just to give you a quick one on there, I'm missing stuff right here.
Mhm.
Okay, I do a lot with YouTube, okay, on it, and it's one of the things that's, and I might not be able to put this on video, some of the stuff I've done with YouTube to make my business grow. But, these I usually have, I have testimonials from my clients on video talking about me being a good agent. I've taken the time to shoot videos with the camera faced at me, where I'm just talking about honesty and integrity and my knowledge of properties and neighborhoods and that there, just kind of a way of introducing myself. And then I occasionally walk through a house and shoot a video of it, and I just do it with my phone. I'm watching my phone, it's like tilting sideways, so